there's different standards for what a high quality plot actually is. Um, and some people set their standards way too high. Other people set their standards way too low. Usually, my standard for a plot is if I don't, if I have enough questions answered by the end of the movie, it's a good movie.
Okay.
And usually, my big issue is I have big issues with plot holes. So, why can't you? It's been established that this person can do this, so why doesn't he do this in this situation? That would probably actually just fix everything,
Mm-hmm.
or that would have prevented all these other things from happening. And that's one of those. Well, the entire plot has plot armor.
If the only logical reason is the writers made me do it, then that is a knock.
Yes,
No matter whether you're talking about films or books or whatever, like
film, book,
it's
films,
contrived.
literature. It should be something that flows naturally,
Mm-hmm.
and it shouldn't be a well. If we do that, then the movie will be over too quickly. So write something else.
Which I guess flows into a good question to kind of start us off, which is just, yeah, what makes a good film? Or how ought I to think about film in a way that lends me towards seeking out good films?
Well,
You know,
film is a
especially if you're the normal type of person who's just like, okay, I need something to do for entertainment this evening, so I'm gonna go watch a movie that I kind of like. Like that's fine in a sense, but
well.
I don't
First
know.
things first,
Call me out of that to something higher.
well, like we've discussed, film is a can be a form of art, and it is a medium which ought to be used to make art. So it should elevate the mind and soul, uh, and it should be true, good, and beautiful, which is what all art should be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is why the so-called art films are mostly garbage, because it's usually just nonsense flashing across the screen. Like there's no story, there's no development, there's nothing unfolding for you to watch, which is really why we come to film. It's the same reason we come to novels. This is kind of not talking about documentary, and documentary kind of tends to get ignored as far as film goes, uh, even though documentary is important. So documentary is to film just what nonfiction is to literature. So we do actually need that as well, and there are very good documentaries, but they're just not most people's cup of tea when they're just going to sit down and watch a movie. You want to sit down and watch a movie, and you have the option to watch like Gods and Generals or Ken Burns' Civil War documentary. I'd say at least 8 out of 10 people will say, "Hey, let's watch Gods and Generals." It's a slow-paced movie, but you're actually watching it unfold in a film that's based on a novel that's written by a historian that studied the first half of the Civil War, or the Civil War leading up to the death of Stonewall Jackson. But anyway, so that's what I have to say
Yes.
about documentary. I won't be talking a whole lot about. I'm going to be leaving documentary out of the conversation strictly because I don't watch a lot of documentaries, so I don't have a lot to say about them other than the fact that yes, I think the fact that they exist is a good thing because they are just like nonfiction but for film. But they're just not something that I usually would watch just for entertainment purposes.
Okay. Maybe this is an ironic question for me to ask, considering that in the last episode I just defined art as anything that was good, true, and beautiful. But when you say that films have to be good, true, and beautiful, um, unpack that a bit in a practical sense. Like, what should we be looking for in the makeup of the film and its various elements that lends itself to that?
Visual, being visually appealing, having a cohesive story, and a proper moral or actual. I don't like using these words, but I can't think of others. Like takeaways from the movie. something that it has gotten you to think about, something that it actually has elevated you to. And this can come in any form and any genre of film. Uh, like there's a lot of romantic comedies where it's like, all right, yes, this is how a man ought to behave in this situation. This is how a woman ought to, and this is how a man and woman ought not to behave in this situation. Or there are like horror movies where it's like, okay, this is something I shouldn't be afraid of, and yeah, there are some things that I definitely ought to be afraid of. There's something to elevate yourself, take you out of yourself, and think of things that are higher. That's the only way that I can think of to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
And making them true and good and beautiful. Truth, they should reflect something about the human condition, which is another phrase that I hate, but it gets tossed around. It's the only one I can think of. Basically, it should reflect something about yourself and make you either learn something about yourself, realize something about yourself, or about man in general, man and the world in general.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and you should come away from it in a positive way. Like you should come away from it with a positive, not really feeling, but a positive sense
Mm-hmm.
that you have actually come to a good conclusion. Because if, the conclusion is, well, life sucks and then you die when you come out of a movie, well, you've just watched a terrible movie. But if you have come out of the movie with the conclusion that there are things that are worth fighting for and heroism is to be pursued and admired, then that's also then that's a good movie that you've just walked away from.
Well said.
And most of the time, unless it's really, really bad, you don't know whether or not you're in a good movie until you finished it. Because the last 10 minutes of a movie is what really makes or breaks it. And I think the movie that's in my head right now that I'll use as an example of this is Dead Poet Society, which, pretentious assholes like to say is like such a masterwork and fantastic movie. Uh, it's good until the last 10 minutes when you think you need to get your point across by having a 16-year-old kid shoot himself in the head because his dad doesn't want him to be an actor.
Hmm.
I understand the point that you're trying to make there, but I can rewrite that movie, the last 10 minutes of that movie, in a couple of minutes and make it 100 times better. Because the whole movie is about how, Robin Williams' character is a very good teacher and he inspires these boys to study poetry and to study film and to study plays and to participate in the arts at this school that basically is only letting him. He's their token English teacher because this school is very prestigious and produces like doctors and lawyers and scientists and whatever. So it's and being set in the 50s is a good choice too because that's kind of where that was where the culture was at the time was like, no, you need to be a doctor, you need to be a lawyer, you need to be a nuclear scientist because that's where the money's at. You're going to make a good living that way, and that's where society is going. We're going to leave art behind us, and we're just going to be focusing on science and progress. So yes, that's there, but ultimately you watch that movie and your takeaway is, well, this 16-year-old kid just shot himself in the head because he couldn't deal with his dad not wanting him to be an actor, and this dad is got this crappy father that's just browbeating him into becoming a doctor when he doesn't really want to be a doctor, although he never really talks to his dad about it except maybe once in the whole film about how he doesn't really want to be a doctor, he wants to be an actor, he wants to do other things. And I will rewrite the last 10 minutes of that movie for you right here. For one thing, the play that the kid was secretly taking part in, it should not have been Midsummer Night's Dream. It's a funny play, but it's one of Shakespeare's worst. It ending with Puck just basically complaining about how he's cleaning up after everybody else. Don't use that. Because his dad shows up at the very end and then berates him for being in the play, even though his performance as Puck was great. What it should have been, instead of Midsummer Night's Dream, it should have been something like Hamlet. or Henry V, where he has the starring role. Actually, Hamlet would have been the best way to convey the message that they want to do, because if the dad shows up at the right time to see his son perform, then he can see his son deliver Hamlet's famous soliloquy. To be or not to be, that is the question, whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, yada, yada, yada. And then, watching his son kill himself on stage and then come to that realization himself that I am the one hurling the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune on my son. And then after the performance, come to his son in tears and say, I am proud of you. I was wrong. That was a spectacular performance. You should be an actor. Study English, study writing, be an actor. And then let the movie end there. But no, they have to do this is what the 50s was like, because this is what dads are like. The dad just browbeats him to the point where he just shoots himself in the head because he wants to be who he is, and the dad's not letting him. And then the parents have to lay all of the blame on Robin Williams because he was a bad teacher for filling his head with false dreams. And the teacher is the one that's responsible, and the teacher gets fired, but the kids all think he's better than their own parents. So they wind up showing more respect to him than anybody else at the end of the movie. And Robin Williams did nothing wrong.
No, it's not his fault.
His
That's
character does nothing wrong through that entire movie. But your teacher should not be replacing your father. It's not what he's there for. He did his job correctly. But in the minds of viewers, it's basically they're trying to get, in the minds of these boys in the movie, it's like he has replaced their fathers because their dads are all pushing them to, be doctors and lawyers and whatever. And he's saying it's okay to be something else.
I mean, it's fundamentally just not a good plot. It doesn't leave you fulfilled. It doesn't leave you aspiring to anything. It doesn't leave you called up to something higher.
But I just fixed it.
Well, you just fixed it, but
the way I just fixed it, it would have called you to something higher. It would have left you fulfilled.
Absolutely.
That would have been great.
Definition of a missed opportunity. So